This is Dolynny TV, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon, and welcome back to another edition of Edmonton Oilers discussion here on the channel today. And you know what? We got some news that's not exactly a shocker, right? We've been waiting on this news since probably about, March at this point. And here we go. We've got the news coming up in free agency. You've got I believe, the highest paid goaltender in the NHL this past season available on the open market coming due, and that is Braden Holtby. And it's a simple ask of Oilers fans today: yes or no, should the Edmonton Oilers pursue Braden Holtby, the Lloydminster, Saskatchewan kid? Should they pursue him in free agency? That's the question put to you. This guy actually played for the Lloydminster midget AAA team, so this kid is born and raised Lloydminster. And I don't know if that means anything to a lot of you. To me, that's a place I used to go twice, 3 times, 4 times a year from the time I was 0 to the time I was 20. So just keep that in mind. That does mean something to me. So a little bit of local pride on the line there in terms of my regions of Alberta, even, yes, Saskatchewan. But if you don't know that story, go Google the border city and figure yourself out. All right, do yourself a favor, get educated. That said, Braden Holtby. How in the heck do the Edmonton Oilers afford 30-year-old Braden Holtby coming off a $6.1 million contract this past season? Well, your guess is as good as mine. Yes, I put the question in. The question is very simple. Should the Oilers pursue him? But the pursuit costs a lot, all right? Look at basically the ways you'd have to make money. If you're bringing in Holtby, you're moving out Koskinen. Well, Mikko Koskinen, let's start with him and his modified no-trade clause in which the player submits a 15-team no-trade list. Now, does he make it difficult and find a team that isn't going to take him in those 15, and then you submit 16 teams that won't take you, and you just make the Oilers have to keep you? I don't know. Do players really do that? I don't think so, but you just never know. So maybe that. And even to that extent, is there a team in those 16 teams he doesn't submit a no-trade list to? Is there a team you want to trade him to? Right? Like in your own division? Like a team that's going to give you a good return? There's the questions. We've already asked those questions, and a lot of us are very comfortable sticking with Mikko Koskinen and finding a 1B to him like we did with Mike Smith this year. Now, obviously, question number 2, what do you do in the backup situation? That, you know what, that's laughable. You can figure that one out a little bit later, no problem. And then, of course, you've got the money situation. If you move out 4.5 in Koskinen, that frees up 4.5. All right, all of a sudden, you've got $15 million in cap space. Are you about to commit 7.5, 6.5, $8 million to Braden Holtby for the minimum next 2 to 3 years? Right? That's an ugly situation in and of itself. Next season, you've already got $69.8 million against the cap committed. The season after that, Nugent Hopkins is due, and you've got $48.750 against the cap committed as of today. So you look at it that way, right? Obviously, yes, you move Mikko Koskinen out, and suddenly that shrinks to 65.3 this year coming up, and it shrinks down to 44.25 the next season. Okay, all of a sudden, we got some money to work with. But the real question, my friends, end of day, no matter if you're yes or no pursuit of Braden Holtby for the Edmonton Oilers, is the simple question before we get into Holtby's stats of what do you think of Braden Holtby? Do you think he's worth what he's going to probably be asking for? Would you pay Braden Holtby what he's worth? Would you try and lowball him and hope he comes to the hometown team? Where do you see Braden Holtby in kind of value-wise? That is the question you have to ask yourself when it comes to Braden Holtby and signing him in a potential off-season, because it just doesn't quite work out, right? So now, all of a sudden, Elite Prospects is now shadowed out the shutouts in a season. I don't know why that's a stat you have to hide, but that's suddenly a stat you have to hide on Elite Prospects. So let me go over to hockeyreference.com and get the actual Braden Holtby number, just because that's a little ridiculous. All right, I get what you're trying to do, Hockey or Elite Prospects. I get it. We appreciate your hustle, but that's a little excessive. So I do have an account. I could sign in and see that, but you know what? big man of use your advertising wisely. So let's get this going here, and let's go here and Braden Holtby stats. All right, I promised you that. Let's get that going and let's get those discussed, because Braden Holtby, a guy who's played in the NHL a long time now, literally. The reason I'm asking this question, if you've stammered in with me for 5 minutes and 20 seconds and you're asking, why is Tyson on Dolynny TV even discussing Braden Holtby? This is laughable. Well, everybody wants to go after Mark Fleury. Why wouldn't you go after Mark Fleury's biggest rival, who's just as good of a goaltender and is a lot younger? Well, you go after Mark Fleury's rival for a lot of years in Braden Holtby and solve the problem that way. Let's talk Braden Holtby's stats, shall we? Let's get it done. The stats for Holtby: the guy has won every season he has played in the NHL, even despite a poor season with the Washington Capitals this year in 2019-2020. Granted, they did fire their coach, so maybe don't blame all of it on Holtby. Still managed 25 wins, 14 losses, and 6 overtime shootout losses. And of course, had no shutouts this year, but when you have an .897 save percentage and a .311 goals against average, that may affect that shutout column. But the guy has 35 career shutouts in 468 games played, in 458 games started, I should say. 282 wins, 122 losses, and 46 OT shootout losses. So can you really complain about those stats? The guy, like I said, wins hockey games. Regulation wins to regulation losses, they're more than double. Yes, granted, he's played on a fantastic Capitals team, but the big thing is he is a big part of those fantastic Capitals teams. So Braden Holtby, again, let's circle back one more time. You see here also the All-Star nominations, the Hart Trophy nominations, the Vezinas, the Jennings, the Vezina 2. Oh my goodness, there's a lot of awards there that Braden Holtby has been up for in his career. And how about a .253 career goals against average? The only problem is you might want to caution yourself a little bit here. Look at that goals against average column. .299 3 years ago, .282 this year, or the year previous, and .311 this year. It's been going down. The numbers have been going downhill the past 3 years after ramping up and in between the first couple of years for Braden Holtby. So caution yourself there. But realistically, guys, as far as we know, at 30 years old, Braden Holtby's got a ton to give. And for 3 years on a right contract, you could probably go out there and win that Stanley Cup if you're the Edmonton Oilers. If not next year, the year after. Whatever you see the Oilers' timeline to winning a cup in the next 3 years, with Braden Holtby, it is 100% possible and doable. But the question remains, as I've already stated, do you want to pursue him? It's going to cost you. You're going to have to make some moves if you're Ken Holland. You're going to have to cut some salary. You're going to have to take some things you don't like, right? Obviously, the Oilers are going to have to grin and bear a trade for a guy like Larson at lesser value, or a guy like Nurse at lesser value. Heck, Clefbaum, Russell at value fans wouldn't see equivalent, but we're starting to see nothing trades, right? You think about that trade Pittsburgh and Minnesota made. That's a player, Bukestad, for $2.5 million retained and a 7th round pick coming back your way. That is laughable in NHL trade value over the past several years. However, right now you look at it, that's going to be the new reality. So do you want the Edmonton Oilers to end up making trades like that to sign Braden Holtby? That is the eventuality of how you get this job done if you're the Oilers. And do you look at the savings of a Pouliot and a Sekera coming down the pipe in the next few years? Do you look at that and say, yes, we can afford to make one of those moves and free up the salary, move out Koskinen, get something back for him, and make the move to better the team with a Holtby? But realistically, you look at the stats and you ask yourself, well, Tyson, you showed me the last 3 years of stats. That is no better, other than the win column, than Mikko Koskinen. So why are you saying we should pursue this guy for upwards of $8 million? I don't know. Your guess is as good as mine. I'm not sitting here telling you what to do, telling you what to think. I'm asking you the question. Do you want the Edmonton Oilers to pursue Braden Holtby in free agency, or do you not want them to pursue Braden Holtby in free agency? Number one thing he's got going for him that I think a lot of guys and gals in Alberta would love is the fact that he is a Lloydminster Border City kid. And I mean, Honestly, right? If you can get an elite player from your own neck of the woods, that always bodes well. Like, look at a guy like most loved Oiler of the past several years, Ryan Smith, mind you. Yeah. Yeah, Ryan Smith. That kind of vibe, right? If he can get that kind of vibe going, you'd love to see that. And Braden Holtby is that kind of vibe, just a goalie instead of a winger that goes out there and plays a hard-nosed game. But still, you get the point. Example stands. Let me know your thoughts in the comments section down below. I'm Tyson, this is Dolynny TV. I am up on out of here. Woo!